Greetings everyone, I am Dr. J, and it's been a while since I've posted, well, anything on this channel, so I figured, you know what? I may as well do something, well, somewhat different. I've been working on Shining Force 2 for a video on my main channel for a while, so I figured I might as well do a little bit more of the grinding. And use it as an opportunity to just talk about... I'll sort of do a channel update for this second channel here. Just trying to think about what exactly the future of this channel is going to be, and figuring out exactly what I want to do with it, because... I'm sure that, well, for the one person who actually watches these videos, I haven't been putting up videos regularly for a couple of reasons. Firstly, the things that I've been wanting to work on have been rather time-consuming, and because of that, I've been wanting to focus a little more on making sure that it actually gets done right. And the two things that I have going right now, which I know I definitely want to finish, one of them is difficult to record remotely, so I haven't gotten much done on it yet. And the other thing has had a bunch of technical issues where I'm having to go back through and tamper with the audio a fair amount, so that's been taking a lot longer than it should have. So because of that, I haven't put out much in the way of any content, and because of what I've been focusing on for the main channel, I haven't needed to actually do much in the way of, well, anything. And I'm not sure entirely what to make of that, because I started this channel as a means to try and show the background for how exactly I go about coming to my opinion on whatever game I'm playing, basically. And in that regard, I think I've had a decent amount of fun with that idea, especially when it comes to things like Half-Life 2 or StarCraft, where seeing what I overall think of a game can be interesting. Well, seeing how I react to a game can be fun to watch, and the game itself is a lot of fun to begin with, so it can be rather entertaining in that regard. But the problem is, I've also wanted to try and branch out from that, because I don't want this channel to purely... Well, I've got a vision for what I want this channel to be, and it expands beyond just doing games for Through the Looking Glass. But the problem is that I'm a college student, and I've got the schedule to match, so it's been difficult to really find time to actually put forward that effort, as well as keep up the main channel. This is a time-consuming thing. Well, it's a time-consuming hobby, that's really what it comes down to, so because of that, I've been having to sacrifice in one area to hopefully get other things done, and that's without even going into academic rigor, so that's why there hasn't been too much lately, as I'm trying to figure out what exactly to do with this channel, and how I want to, well, what exactly I want to focus on. I think I've got a better idea now, mostly focused around just whatever the hell I feel like at this point, because unless there's really a game that I feel like I have to play for that I think would be entertaining to show in a review, I think I've got a different format that can showcase the thought process beyond just trying to force myself to be entertaining while I'm also trying to technically critique a game. And I think I was sort of forced into that circumstance. Are you gonna kill Slade? You killed Slade. Yeah. I'm playing this on super difficulty, so it's being a bit more challenging than I'm used to. So I may as well talk about this game in particular, because I'm doing it for doing a review on this eventually. And the reason I'm playing this on super difficulty is because, A, I found out this was the hardest difficulty, and there are a couple of reasons why I wanted to make sure that I actually did beat it on the higher difficulty, because I've got a couple of ideas for how I want to talk, a couple of things I want to talk about, and I need to make sure that I am actually on point on both of those. So the first thing is, because of through the middle section, I think, or roughly through the middle section, I ended up not spending, well, ended up playing through my first run of this game rather sparsely, so right now my main criticism of the middle section is that it was a little too sparse, and it felt like it focused much more on the gameplay, and not necessarily in a fun way, where before it had been mostly focused on story and character interaction. So that was my main criticism of the middle, where the start of the game and the end of the game were a lot of fun, and they threw out all sorts of interesting ideas, structured the pacing pretty well, and all that fun stuff. But towards the middle, it felt like it teetered a little too far towards focusing on gameplay over everything else, and unfortunately not necessarily engaging gameplay. So, but the problem is that because I played it so sparsely because of what I saw as somewhat grindy and blah blah blah, I didn't end up playing nearly as much as I probably should, well, didn't play it regularly enough to where it probably exacerbated that problem if it exists. So I'm playing through it on another difficulty in order to try and make sure that that is actually true. So I figured, you know what, might as well turn on the record button and ramble on a few other things while I'm on the subject. And then, outside of that, the other reason is due to the way the grinding is handled in general with this game. Because in the normal mode, I didn't have to do a lot of grinding, and I was able to get away with that for the most part. But the problem is, I don't know if that necessarily stays true in this HES mode, which basically gives a flat 25% increase to all of the enemy statistics. So their defense goes up, their health goes up, their damage goes up. They become a royal pain in the butt to deal with. So I figured that going through it on this higher difficulty would be interesting to look at it to make sure that the grinding doesn't get out of control. And I might as well talk about that grinding a little bit, because I'm not inherently against the idea of grinding, as I've played a ton of Diablo-style games, and I've even got... Actually, yes, a couple of Shooting the Breeze episodes that I've done, and the first Let's Play I ever completed being Diablo 2. So, actually I haven't done Shooting the Breeze on Diablo 2. I wonder if it'd be worth revisiting later. Ah, well. Ideas for other things I could be doing aside, the main focus... Well, I'm not inherently against the idea of grinding. That was the main point. Can you tell I'm doing this off the cuff? Jeez. So, I think the main thing there is that I'm not against it, but the problem is, in order for me to not mind the fact that there's a grind, it has to have a couple of things in order for it to work for me. It needs to either be fun in and of itself, or the reward at the end needs to be worthwhile. Unfortunately, I can't really say that either of those are true for this game, because I'm not grinding on a quest... I'm not grinding because I enjoy bashing monsters' heads in with a flame hammer. I'm doing it because I need to up some arbitrary statistic. No, I'm doing it because I feel I have to in order to get past what feels like a difficulty spike. I'm not grinding because I'm on a quest for the bigger shoulder pads. I'm doing it because I want to increase an arbitrary number slightly more. So, I feel like especially given that the way the actual combat operates and what you're actually doing within it, I feel that it doesn't quite work as well when you're forced to do that kind of grinding. So, I'm worried that it'll become a more noticeable feature in a harder difficulty mode. So I want to make sure I want to make sure if that is actually the case before getting too far. So I've got at least 20 hours of gameplay that I still have to do to really properly critique this game the way I want to. And another reason that I want to try and critique it outside of just the grinding being annoying is because the reason for the grinding, it also concerns me a little bit. Because, I think what it comes down to is the reward system for how this game determines, the way that the game rewards you for being successful in combat. When you break it down, you could call this an SRPG. Actually, I've heard that the S in that technically stands for Simulation RPG, but I thought Strategy RPG worked a lot better. But tangents aside, the point of a strategy RPG... You know what? I'm calling it Strategy RPG. That's what it is to me. The point of an SRPG is to... Well, when you break it down, this is a turn-based strategy game with RPG elements, where you can level up your characters and whatnot. So, in order to make that work... think about what a reward system for a turn-based strategy game would be. If you even need a reward system. It would be... Because in order to design a good reward system, it has to be based on what exactly you're doing within the game. So, a good reward... So, in a turn-based strategy game, your goal is to defeat all the enemies in the most efficient way possible, while sacrificing as few units of your own as possible, so that you can more efficiently knock down the opponent. It's all about the strategic aspect. But the problem is that... Okay, I don't want to bring you up, because that goblin will slaughter you. Actually, no, I've healed Sarah. She'll be fine. Let's just... Actually, what's your movement? Movement's 5, 1, 2... Yeah, okay, I don't want to move you either. So that I don't lose Chester. So, me getting distracted by the game... Yep, had a feeling. So, that's the goal that you're trying to accomplish in a turn-based strategy game. And as a goal, it works pretty well for those who are more strategically minded and enjoy games like chess, but are also willing to deal with a bit more luck involved when you have things like critical strike chance and a few other factors like that. The problem that you run into, though, is that the game's reward system is intrinsically tied to what exactly your characters are doing. I don't like this idea, but I think I can kill him before he can get to Kazan. Alright, let's try it. Yeah, if he gets whacked, he's gonna die, but let's hope it doesn't come to that. But the problem is that the reward system for this game is based purely on how effective the individual characters are, as they all have their individual experience bar, and which incrementally increases based on how much damage they've inflicted, whether they dealt the killing blow, or how much they've healed of someone else. So, the problem is that you can end up in a circumstance where where the most powerful character on your team and the least powerful character on your team are drastically different in levels, simply due to the way that the game operates. And this is further exacerbated by the fact that... Oh geez, I'm about to run out of magic on you. Okay, that'll be fun. I think I've got enough herbs to be fine, though. Problem is, you run into a circumstance... Well, you do run into the circumstance where some people are under level, but it gets even worse because of the way that movement is handled. In a lot of modern SRPGs, like Fire Emblem and whatnot, turn order is determined by the team you're on, where you can move whatever units you have in whatever order you want. The problem is that in this game, it's determined by a speed statistic, and what appears to be some other factor, which I'm not entirely clear on. I need to try and do a bit more testing to be sure I've got that right. But I don't know, there's been some weirdness involved with it to where I'm not entirely sure what the precise turn order is. I'll have to, again, do more research. Probably spend the time while I'm playing through this figuring that out. So, anyway, the problem is that because of the way the turn order works, the least leveled person is the one who's going to go last. So you're in a circumstance where you're hoping that... I'm trying to think of the right words for it. You're hoping that... you have to move the least leveled character into position to where they can actually get a strike in, but the problem is that you're also hoping against hope that you're also not put into a position where said character is going to get killed by the opponent if they breathe on him wrong, especially once you get into later levels and once things get a lot more deadly. So in order to actually if you aren't excruciatingly careful and lucky with how you handle pretty much every combat scenario, you can end up in a situation where characters just flat out become useless, and the way that you efficiently go about playing the game is to have your beefy guys in the front just mauling everyone, tearing everyone to pieces, and that means that the underleveled characters just stay underleveled, and the rich get richer. So, and then that means if you want to try and make up for that, you either have to do a ton more grinding, or sacrifice in some other area, which is where we get into issues where Jaha ends up dead. Admittedly, that was because I stuck his neck out too far, but you get the point. How many enemies are left? Oh, shoot, you're getting attacked first. Okay, we'll find out after you. Holy jeez, okay, that's not fun. Well, how many people are there left? Okay, so it's just that goblin and witch over there. Is there anyone else? Okay, we're good then. So let's back you over here to where you're out of reach of both. Have you use one of your medical herbs on yourself. Then we carry on. I don't think that'll be a full heal, but it'll get you far enough. Hey, cool, level. So, I'm a little concerned that the game hasn't necessarily been the most thought out in that regard, especially since I'll probably need to do a fair amount of grinding if this battle has anything to go by. Because I remember, I don't think I cleaved through this fight, but I definitely had more characters standing at this point than I did then. So, I'll have to think a little bit more as to how exactly I'm going to critique it. Because if this does become an issue where I have to do a ton of grinding, then my opinion of the game might not be as high, but I don't know, how much of it would really be a factor when push comes to shove? Because when I was playing through the first time, I did have that point where I didn't want to play too much of it because it had become uninteresting due to the grind, but when I really look back, there really wasn't all that much grinding involved. Outside of a few areas where I intentionally stuck around and grinded for probably longer than I needed to. It really wasn't that time-consuming. The most that I had to do in the majority of cases was just to stick around for a fight a couple times if I've got beat by it, and that was usually enough to get to where I didn't have any problems moving forward. And actually, that's a witch. You will probably one-shot Kiwi if I let you. Actually, wait, if you're physically hitting him, probably not. Yep, didn't think so. You're really durable. Alright then, just can't do too many actual hits with a melee guy. I'll keep Sarah back. So, oh yeah, Goblin. That'll be fun. But the thing is that when I started the game, I had a lot of fun, and once I actually got into it and got past most of the grindy aspects and just sat down and kept playing consistently, there was enough of a strategic element, and because I wasn't grinding too much, I was also able to stay at a relative difficulty level to where I did have a lot of fun, and it was about the right balance to where it felt challenging enough. And there were also, in terms of the story, I genuinely did enjoy how it all resolved, outside of one sappy moment towards the end, which I won't get into here. So, I really did enjoy the game, but if I were... The question is, was that enough for me? Because when I think on it, if I didn't have to play through this in order to properly review it, I don't know if I would, I'll be honest. But at the same time, is that necessarily a problem? Because I did walk away relatively satisfied with what I had. So is the fact that I didn't quite get as much as I probably could have necessarily a bad thing? Because I still did have fun with it. So it's getting into semantics that I'll have to think about, and it's probably going to be a long time before I actually even finish this review. In fact, I've intentionally kept away from doing a Let's Play of this because, yeah, it's just been relatively grindy at more than one occasion, so I didn't think that it would be worth the trouble to try and go, yeah, we're grinding again. Yep, we're still here. My original Shining Force playthrough wasn't my best work, and I'll admit that myself. Outside of the moments where my brother comes in and does all sorts of silliness. So, alright, I'm not going to narrate through this because I'm feeling lazy. There wasn't a big rock, was there? Oh dear. Yep. Oh, that's fun. Yeah, I know more about what's going on there, so... Yep, that's... I think the third area, technically speaking. I guess we'll never know. We'll see about that. But I guess I'll just wrap up my thoughts here and wrap up the video in general, because the way I did my Shining Force Let's Play was just a battle at a time. But, just trying to think, is there anything else that I really want to say about it? Well, probably not too much, just that I'm working on this game, I'm still trying to figure out what exactly I want to do with this channel, and in the short term, I know I want to wrap up my Undertale bit with the brother. We have recorded almost everything outside of a post-mortem, so it's just a matter of getting through and fixing the audio for that. Zumbinis is going to take a while because I don't want to try and do that too much of that remotely, because last time we did that there were more than a few issues. Spring break's coming up in about a month, so I'll make sure to utilize that time as much as I can. And outside of that, I'm trying to think what else is there to worry about. I've got a couple of ideas for a couple of games I may want to do, like focus on RPGs that are more story-driven and don't have as much grinding. I'm thinking something like what I had with Planescape Torment would be fun, or maybe find something a bit more action-packed. I know Tomb Raider 2 is... I do have Tomb Raider 2 installed on this computer. That might be worth checking out. But I'll have to think about more as to what exactly I want to worry about, and hopefully I can get this back to a pseudo-regular schedule. However, right now my focus is going to be where I spend any video editing time on the main channel. That's really what I want to focus on. I've been trying to get a review out every 3 weeks, and it hasn't been successful thus far because academics, but hopefully I can get back on track once I finish up another game, and then hopefully this one will be shortly after that, but we'll again have to see how this turns out. So, thank you for being patient with me. Hopefully this was still entertaining or interesting to listen to me ramble while watching me fail horribly and getting Slade killed and blah blah blah. Actually, who else went down? Jaha? Why is he still standing? Ah well. Either way, thanks for watching. I'll see you all later.